If you are staring at your bank account right now with a heavy, sickening knot in your stomach, wondering how on earth everything managed to slip out of your hands so fast, I really need you to just pause and stay right here with me for a moment. Please, do not close this video, and do not let that cold, overwhelming panic convince you that you are entirely on your own, or that you have completely run out of options tonight. We happen to live in a world where facing financial ruin feels like an absolute modern-day death sentence. It becomes this heavy, invisible, suffocating weight that clamps down directly onto your chest from the very second you open your eyes in the early morning. You might very well be sitting there watching this in the complete dark, late at night while the rest of the house is quiet, desperately praying for some kind of miracle, begging for just a small sign, or honestly just praying that the morning sun never actually comes. Because let us be real, the daylight only seems to bring more overdue bills, more aggressive demands, and more brutal, painful realizations of exactly what you are lacking right now. It is a genuinely terrifying, deeply isolating place to be when the numbers on the screen simply do not add up, and every single voice in the system around you keeps insisting that you are failing. But I want to look you in the eyes and promise you something right now, right at the very beginning of our quiet conversation. This sudden crisis you are walking through is absolutely not the final chapter of your life story. The deep desperation you are feeling right now is incredibly real, yes, but it is not the ultimate, permanent truth of your destiny. Today, we are going to talk about the unexpected ways that God actually answers our heartfelt prayers for provision, and how it is almost never in the exact way we look for or demand in our panic. We are going to find a way to look past the immediate panic, past the raw fear that shakes your hands, and look directly at how the Creator of the universe steps right down into our deepest financial ruins to build a foundation that can never be shaken, broken, or destroyed by the world. When you feel like you are standing on the very edge of a crumbling cliff, it is only natural to want to run away, to hide your face from the harsh reality of your situation, or to just let an absolute sense of despair take over your heart. But I am asking you to just take one slow, deep breath with me and listen very closely to what is being said here. You have not been abandoned in this valley, and your life story does not end in a bankruptcy court, in lack, or in total defeat. There is a much grander design quietly at work behind the scenes, a gentle divine process that uses the absolute lowest moments of our greatest scarcity to reveal a deeper, true source of abundance that this world can neither give to you nor ever take away from you. Let us journey through this thick darkness together, understanding that the quiet light of true provision is already beginning to break through the rough edges of your deepest fear. I know exactly how heavy that deafening, empty silence feels when the house goes quiet, and you are left looking at the raw, unvarnished reality of your life. Financial struggle is never just about a simple lack of cash in your wallet, is it? It is something far more invasive, something that creeps into every single corner of your home. It completely alters the very way you breathe, turning every single inhalation into a shallow, exhausting gasp for basic survival. It changes the small moments, like the way you look at your children or grandchildren when they walk into the room, instantly mixing your deep love for them with a sharp, painful sense of unspoken guilt. It completely ruins the way you sleep at night, turning what should be a peaceful time of sacred rest into a brutal midnight battleground of anxious thoughts, endless mental calculations, and repetitive worst-case scenarios played out over and over again in your mind. I want to speak straight from the heart to those of you who feel like you are completely drowning under a mountain of debt, where every single phone call from an unknown number makes your heart race with pure terror, because you already know it is just another collector demanding money you simply do not possess right now. I see you sitting there. I see the heavy, quiet shame that comes with that reality, the suffocating feeling that you have somehow let down the people who depend on you the most, and the deep, painful isolation that grows when you feel you have to put on a brave face and hide your daily struggle from your friends, your neighbors, and the rest of the world. Think about the dedicated, hard-working small business owner who poured their entire life savings, decades of physical sweat, honest tears, and endless midnight oil into a dream, only to watch the market shift unexpectedly, the foot traffic disappear, and the daily revenue completely dry up. Now, there is nothing left to face but empty shelves, quiet corridors, and a stack of unpaid invoices on the desk. The sheer weight of watching something you built with your own two hands, day after day, crumble into absolute nothingness is a very specific kind of quiet grief that very few people around you can truly understand. It makes you feel utterly exposed, completely inadequate as a person, and deeply judged by a fast-moving society that only seems to celebrate material wealth and loud, outward success. You feel as though your very identity and dignity have been stripped away along with your profit margins, leaving you completely exposed to the cold, thoughtless opinions of others. And what can we say about the sudden, shocking blow of losing a long-term job? One ordinary morning, you are walking into the workplace with a firm, comfortable sense of security, quietly planning for your retirement and your family's future, and the very next hour you are handed a cold, formal piece of paper that shatters your entire stability in a single instant. You walk out to the parking lot, sitting in the driver's seat with your hands gripping the steering wheel, completely numb inside, wondering how on earth you are going to walk through your front door and tell your family that the steady income they relied on has just vanished into thin air. The panic that sets in is deeply visceral, twisting your stomach into knots. It whispers cruel lies, telling you that you are no longer a good provider, that your intrinsic worth as a human being has somehow vanished along with your monthly salary. You look at your family laughing in the living room, and instead of feeling a sense of warmth, you feel a sharp, terrifying pang of fear because you honestly do not know if you can buy basic groceries next week, or keep the lights and heat on next month, or find a way to pay the rent or mortgage that is due in a matter of days. It is the constant, mentally exhausting math we do down at the local supermarket, holding a simple, everyday item in your hand and staring at the price tag, then slowly, quietly, putting it back on the shelf because those few extra rupees or dollars mean you might not have enough cash for bus fare or petrol tomorrow morning. It is the quiet tears shed in the bathroom with the sink water running full blast, so your spouse or your children do not hear you breaking down. It is that crushing, heavy feeling of total helplessness when you realize that no matter how hard you try, no matter how many extra hours you are willing to put in, the massive gap between what you have and what you actually need just keeps growing wider and wider every single month. Please hear me when I say this. There is absolutely no judgment or shame for your fear here tonight. Your pain is entirely valid, your worry is deeply human, and you are absolutely not being punished by an angry, distant deity. You are simply caught in the middle of a severe worldly storm right now. But this temporary storm does not define who you are to God, nor does it ever limit his capacity to reach all the way down into the waves and hold you secure. When you find yourself sitting in the absolute middle of this financial wreckage, your very first natural instinct is to pray. You pray with every single ounce of strength you have left in your weary soul. You cry out into the quiet, empty room, begging for an immediate breakthrough, pleading for a sudden financial windfall, or begging for the heavens to just split open and drop the exact amount of money you need to clear your debts and bring comfort back to your home. But then, as the days crawl by, nothing seems to happen. The mailbox at the front door remains stubbornly empty. The bank balance on your phone remains terrifyingly low. The bill collectors continue to call your phone without a single pause. And in that empty, heavy silence, a very dangerous, toxic thought begins to take root in your mind. You begin to honestly believe that God is being entirely silent. You begin to believe that he is simply not listening to your cries, or what feels even worse, that he just does not care about the suffering of your family. The truth is, we have been subtly conditioned for years by a deeply flawed, superficial narrative on television and social media that claims material wealth is the ultimate, definitive proof of a person's faith. We see comfortable people on screens telling us that if we just believe hard enough, or if we say the right words, we will be instantly rewarded with endless luxury, financial ease, and a life of total comfort. This is a profound, incredibly damaging misconception that completely distorts the true, loving nature of God's heart. When the money does not miraculously appear overnight, you naturally begin to turn all that blame inward. You start thinking to yourself, maybe my faith is just too weak. Maybe I did not pray using the right religious words. Or maybe God has permanently turned his back on me because of some old mistake or failure from my past. But the beautiful truth I want you to carry in your heart today is that the silence of God is never the absence of God. When it feels like your prayers are doing nothing but bouncing right off the ceiling of your room, it is not because God is ignoring your voice or turning a deaf ear to your family's pain. It is actually because he loves you far too much to answer a shallow prayer that only fixes your temporary comfort while leaving your deeper, eternal spiritual foundation completely vulnerable to being destroyed by the world. God is not a cold, cosmic vending machine where you simply insert a prayer and automatically expect a financial check to slide out. He is a wise, incredibly loving Father who cares about the whole person. When we are facing imminent financial ruin, our natural human reaction is to ask for a quick, completely painless exit from the problem. But God is looking at the entire beautiful landscape of our long-term life. He knows exactly how a financial crisis can become the very soil where a true, completely unshakable trust is grown and matured for the years ahead. If material wealth were the only true sign of God's favor, then the most faithful, holy people throughout human history would have been the richest citizens on earth. But we know very well that is simply not the case. God's silence is very often a sacred, deeply intentional pause. It is a quiet season where he is gently dismantling our unhealthy, fragile reliance on worldly security so that we can finally learn how to rest entirely and exclusively on him. He is quietly preparing you for a much deeper relationship, one that is completely independent of the wild fluctuations of the stock market or the stability of a paper bank statement. So, how do we actually navigate this difficult, incredibly painful space when the panic inside your head is screaming at you to do something, anything, just to survive the next 24 hours? What we need right now is what I like to call a micro shift. We need a small, quiet, highly deliberate change in our daily routine and our internal mindset that gently moves us away from that frantic, panic-driven survival mode and steps us into a calm state of faithful, active stewardship. Look, when you are absolutely terrified about your future, your brain naturally enters a state of chaotic fight or flight where you simply cannot see reality clearly. The very first practical step you need to take today is to look at your reality with absolute honesty, but without letting an ounce of fear cloud your judgment. I want you to sit down at the kitchen table with a plain piece of paper and a pen and write down exactly what you have left and exactly what you owe to others. Stop running away from opening the letters on the counter. Stop avoiding looking at the numbers online. Bring every single one of them directly into the clear light of day. When you face the exact reality of your situation with a calm mind, you instantly take away that phantom monster's power to terrify you in the dark. The second shift, and honestly the most important change you can make today, is to radically alter the daily language and the direction of your prayers. For weeks or even months now, your regular prayer has probably been, "Lord, please just give me this money, give me this job, or clear this debt away from me immediately." It is a prayer that is completely centered around the specific material outcome you think you must have to be safe. I want you to gently shift that focus starting this very evening. Instead of constantly praying, "Give me," I want you to start praying, "Guide me." Change your daily words to, "Lord, please show me exactly what you want me to see in this quiet space of scarcity. Give me the supernatural wisdom to properly manage the very little I have left in my hands right now. Open my eyes to the unique opportunities and the hidden, everyday resources that are already sitting around me, which I am currently too blinded by my own panic to even notice. This is the essential, life-changing transition from being a passive victim of your financial circumstances to becoming an active, clear-headed steward of God's hidden, unconventional provisions. It means waking up in the morning and instead of asking your pillow, "How on earth will I survive another stressful day?" you stand up, take a breath, and ask, "How can I be completely faithful with exactly what is sitting in my hands right this minute?" It is a tiny, subtle shift in your daily perspective, but it completely changes your posture from a closed, desperate fist of panic to an open, receptive palm of readiness. You finally stop demanding that God follow your specific script, and you begin asking how you can step into his timing. Let me tell you a real true story about a man named David, whose life might sound very familiar to what you are going through. David owned a small, independent commercial distribution business that he had spent 15 long, grueling years building up from absolutely nothing. He was a deeply faithful man, always believed in doing the honest thing, treated his daily workers like family, and was always the first person in his neighborhood to help others whenever a need arose. But during a sudden, completely unexpected economic downturn that hit the whole community, 3 of his largest corporate clients went completely bankrupt within the exact same month. This left David holding massive unpaid supply bills and a mountain of personal business debt that he was legally responsible to pay back. Within a short 90 days, the business he loved and sacrificed his youth for was completely wiped off the map. He had to lay off his loyal staff, chain the iron doors of his warehouse shut, and face the brutal reality that his personal life savings were entirely gone. He found himself at 50 years old, sitting on his cold kitchen floor in the middle of the night, staring at foreclosure notices for his family home. David prayed desperately every single day. He fasted, he wept until he had no tears left, and he begged God to send a sudden foreign investor to save his house, or for a lottery win, or for some kind of miracle lawsuit settlement that would instantly restore his old fortune. But absolutely nothing happened. The family home was eventually sold off at a public auction, and David and his family had to pack up their memories and move into a tiny, cramped apartment in a much louder, poorer part of the city. David felt completely abandoned, broken, and rejected by God. He felt the sharp, burning sting of personal failure every single time he looked into the eyes of his wife and his children, genuinely believing he had failed them as a protector and a provider. Then one quiet afternoon, completely broken down and utterly tired of fighting the wind, David stopped praying for his old business to return. He simply sat back in his chair, opened his hands, and said, "Lord, I have absolutely nothing left to offer you today. Just tell me what to do right now, just for today." That very same week, an old acquaintance who ran a struggling, underfunded local food charity happened to hear about David's situation. This charity was dealing with immense logistical chaos, wasting their precious donated food because they simply did not know how to manage supply chains, transport, or proper warehouse storage. The acquaintance reached out and asked David if he could possibly volunteer just a few hours of his empty time to look over their broken system. David, having nothing but empty time on his hands, agreed to help. Using his 15 years of deep, practical business experience, David completely reorganized the charity's entire distribution network from top to bottom. He fixed their driving routes, renegotiated their storage spaces, and managed to allow them to feed 3 times as many hungry families for half the cost. The board of directors for the charity was so completely astonished by his professional skill, his humility, and his dedication that they created a brand new, full-time, salaried executive position specifically for him. It did not make David rich overnight, and it certainly did not give him his old warehouse back, but it comfortably paid his monthly rent. It put good food on his family's table, and it gave him a profound, beautiful sense of divine purpose that he had never once experienced in his old corporate life. You see, God did not answer David's frantic prayer by saving his failing business with a magic check in the mail. He answered it by gently stripping away an old identity to place him exactly where his unique gifts could serve a higher purpose, while quietly ensuring his basic daily needs were always met. This non-linear, completely unexpected mode of divine provision is exactly how God has operated since the very beginning of human time. When we turn our attention to the pages of Scripture, we can see so clearly that God's definition of provision is fundamentally and radically different from the world's commercial definition of luxury. Think deeply for a moment about the ancient Israelites wandering in the harsh, completely barren wilderness after leaving their life in Egypt. They found themselves completely helpless in the desert sand, with no fields to harvest, no seeds to plant, and no markets to buy simple food for their children. They panicked completely, crying out and wishing they were back in brutal slavery just to have a guaranteed, predictable meal at night. But God responded not by making fruit trees grow in the sand overnight, but by gently raining down a quiet substance called manna from heaven every single morning onto the desert floor. The divine catch to this miracle was that they were only allowed to gather enough manna for that specific day. If they panicked and tried to hoard extra food out of fear for what tomorrow might bring, the ancient text tells us it immediately rotted and bred worms in their tents. God was not just filling their physical stomachs out in the heat. He was intentionally, patiently training their anxious hearts to trust Him day by day, morning by morning, recognizing that true security is always found in the living provider, never in the size of the storehouse. Look at the life of the prophet Elijah during the long years of the great drought. God did not send a massive rainstorm to end the regional famine right away. Instead, He commanded Elijah to go and sit by a small, isolated, hidden brook called Cherith. And there, He commanded ravens, birds of prey that are naturally selfish and steal food for themselves, to bring Elijah fresh bread and meat every single morning and every single evening without fail. God used the most unlikely, unpredictable, and naturally selfish instruments in creation to sustain His servant in total isolation. And remember the timeless, comfort-filled words of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, where He tells us plainly to just stop and look at the birds of the air. They do not sow fields, they do not reap harvests, they do not store away food in massive, secure barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds every single one of them without fail. Are you not much more valuable to Him than they are? Jesus asks a piercing, profound question that echoes through the centuries, straight into your current financial crisis tonight. Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? When we deliberately choose to fill our minds with stories of divine faithfulness instead of human panic, our entire spiritual grounding shifts. God never promises that we will never face the cold winds of winter. He promises that He will be the living fire that keeps us warm through it. As we bring our long, quiet conversation to a close today, I want you to just take one more deep, clear, conscious breath. Let go of that tight, painful grip of worry that has been holding your shoulders so tense all day long. God answers our prayers for provision, not by fulfilling our specific frantic demands for instant wealth or quick escapes, but by giving us a quiet peace that completely surpasses human understanding, the divine wisdom to see new paths where there used to be nothing but walls, and the daily bread that sustains our journey step by step. He is providing for you right now, in this very moment, through the unseen strength that keeps you standing up, through the quiet people who reach out to check on you, and through that still, small voice in your heart telling you to just keep moving forward. Let us join our hearts and our minds in a brief, focused prayer together right now. Lord, we bring our financial ruins, our heavy debts, our deepest fears, and our broken dreams, and lay them directly at your feet tonight. We confess our panic, and we ask for your gentle forgiveness for the times we allowed our fear to make us doubt your goodness and your presence in our homes. Please remove the spirit of paralyzing fear from our minds and our families. Give us the practical, quiet wisdom to steward whatever we have left in our hands, the open eyes to see your hidden provisions around us, and the deep, unshakable peace of knowing that our true worth as human beings is found in you alone, never in our bank accounts, our jobs, or our social status. Please guide our practical steps tomorrow morning and provide for our families according to your limitless riches. Amen. If this quiet message brought even a small glimmer of peace or a gentle shift in perspective to your heart today, I warmly invite you to subscribe to this channel so we can continue to walk this deep spiritual journey together week by week. Please feel free to share your honest thoughts, your own prayers, or your personal story of survival in the comments down below. Let this comment section become a true, safe sanctuary of support, where no one has to carry their financial weight or their unspoken shame alone. Stay faithful, keep your eyes open to His daily guidance in the small things, and remember always that you are deeply, unconditionally loved by a God who will never let go of your hand.